So we have to have a motion for voting privileges for adherents, and I'm just going to read you the technical stuff straight out of the manual, so you know how to, the United Church guidebook. Based on the United Church manual and the bylaws, Community of Faith section, bylaw B.3.4.1, adherents, it states the definition. An adherent of a congregation is a person who contributes regularly to the life and work of the congregation, but is not a full member of the congregation. Not a full member of the congregation. And bylaw B.3.7.2, when adherents may vote, it states, adherents may vote at a meeting of the congregation if the full membership decides to allow this. So could we have a mover for this motion? I see Diana Prest, and seconded by Jean Wenzel. All in favor? Any opposed? Excellent. Motion is carried. And now we have minutes that I hope you received by email, duly taken by Helen, to approve the minutes of the October 15th meeting. Could I have a mover of those minutes? If you have all, is there any questions about those minutes? I don't think. I see no hands. So could we have a mover of that motion to approve the minutes? Doreen? And seconded by, I see a hand, but you're very little. Helen. Helen Sweet, yes. All in favor? Excellent, thank you. And now to the meat of this meeting. I welcome David Martin to the lectern as a key person on the amalgamation team. And David Hewitt is coming close by to answer questions. Yes. Yes, please do. Welcome to the stage. So I turn it over to David now. David Martin now.
Thank you, Brenda.
I'll call you Dave.
Yes. I'm going to refer to my notes here because we have a lot of vital information. I want to make sure we cover it all. And we will talk to the questions in a moment. Since our last congregation meeting on October 15th, the Fairview United Council and their congregation have approved a motion that they proceed with the intention of amalgamation with Rockingham United Church. That was the motion. This is similar to the motion which we are presenting to you today and which has already been approved by our council. Our amalgamation team, which consists of Alan Schneer, Karine Chater, Ron Tanton, and myself, have now met with the Fairview amalgamation team 4 times since June of this year. And under the guidance of David Hewitt here, of the United Church Regional Council, we have been looking at 5 major areas to be addressed prior to us making a final recommendation to the Regional Council, who will approve any amalgamation. And the 5 areas we've been looking at are the vision and mission, which we do have a strong one right now, but we need to revise. Organization and structure. Both churches have a council structure, so that should not be too difficult. Staffing, of course, we want to make sure everybody is comfortable in their new positions. Finances and property. And lastly, the name, which is very important also, the name of the new church. Just talking about Fairview, due to their physical problems with their building, plus the fact that they will not have a minister after December 31st, now that Reverend Angela has answered a call to ministry here at Rockingham, Fairview have decided to discontinue services in their building effective December 31st, or the end of this year. And they wish to attend services of Rockingham effective January the 7th, so early in the new year, Fairview want to come up here and join our services. That would be prior to formal amalgamation, but it's a date they want to start with. Until and if amalgamation is approved by both congregations and the Regional Council, both churches will continue with separate councils and committees until that amalgamation is finalized. The Fairview church property will be sold. 15% of the proceeds go to the regional council, and 85% of the proceeds come to the new amalgamated church, still to be named. We sent out a questionnaire just over a week ago asking for your thoughts and concerns with any questions you may have at this stage. We're very pleased with the responses. We got 25 email responses and quite a few questions and suggestions verbally, which were very thoughtful. And I want to thank you all for your valuable feedback. There was a strong message that you want Fairview people to feel welcomed and included in future decision-making, and also the cultural life of the new church. Some excellent suggestions were made as to how this can be achieved. And I think we're all committed to make sure this happens as we move forward. We want to make them feel welcome, and I'm sure we can do that. Now, the questions have been collated, and we will use these slides to address them, hopefully to your satisfaction. Okay, so the first one we have there is, what will amalgamation look like? For example, and if you can't, I'll read it out in case you can't all see that. For example, will there be one minister for both locations? Does amalgamation mean that we alternate locations every week or every month? Well, yes, there will be one congregation, and it will be here in Rockingham. That's the plan at this stage. And of course, there's one minister. Does amalgamation mean that we alternate locations? No, we don't alternate locations. Everything will be here once we amalgamate. And indeed, beginning in January, we'll effectively be worshiping together. Next slide, please. What location is proposed for the amalgamated church? How do we determine which church stays and which one will be closed? And how are the proceeds distributed, assuming one is sold? Well, as to the location, it's going to be here at Rockingham, with a new church to be named. The reason, of course, for that is the physical situation at Fairview didn't allow them to continue, and their financial situation is also a concern. Which one will be closed? Well, Fairview are selling their property. They've already made the decision to do that, and the proceeds will come to the new church. How are proceeds distributed? Well, it's not a question of distributing. Those proceeds will be available to the new church, and we will, as a joint church, will decide how that's used. There's no question it's going to be very positive for the new church, because it means we will have funds to do a lot of the outreach, a lot of the programs, a lot of the new initiatives that we hope to have in the new church. Is there consideration to find a new location for the amalgamated congregation so it doesn't feel like yours versus ours? This is a perfectly good location here. We have a new roof. We have put a lot of money into this location. And at this stage, it doesn't make sense to look for a new venue. As we progress, if we're putting two congregations together, there's going to be a lot of work with committees, a lot of rejuvenation. To try and look for a new building or build a new building would be a distraction. It may be something we want to do in the future, but it's not it felt it wasn't necessary at this stage to go looking for a new location. We have a perfectly good location here, and hopefully we can continue to work here. When will this amalgamation take place? What is the timeline? Well, as I've said to you, it's going to take work by two amalgamation teams, one from Fairview, one from Rockingham, and we will work together to make this happen. We have to put together a plan, basically, based on those 5 points that I mentioned earlier, and we'll give those responses to the region and ask for their approval of that. It takes a little while. There's some work to be done, but we'll be working together with Fairview to make this happen. We'd like to think it can be done quickly, but we're not going to really try it and do it quickly. We're going to try and do it right. So a normal timeline would be, let's try and get this done before we form a new council next year. And the annual, in the life of the church, that's usually June of every year, and then we start again in September. So we'd kind of like to aim for that for next year, but at this stage, we're not putting any firm timeline on it. And we'd like to just proceed, not cautiously, but we want to make sure we get it right. And we will communicate with you as we go along, either through the bulletin or through meetings like this. And we're certainly open to any questions along the way, any suggestions you may have. They're very welcome. Do the two congregations vote on amalgamation? Yes. Both Fairview and Rockingham will vote finally on the final amalgamation after we answer those 5 points. And we'll ask for your okay on that before we go to council as well, before we go to the regional council, I mean. And the regional council will give the final approval. But we will have a vote on the matter. Next slide. What constitutes a quorum decision to amalgamate from each independent congregation? The quorum is 50% plus 1. So in order for us to move ahead, we will need 50% of this congregation plus 1 person to move ahead, and the same will happen at Fairview. Does Fairview need to stay as its own body to keep the funds from the sale of their property? Well, when Fairview sell their property, which can be any time in the next year, the sale of their property, or our amalgamation is not dependent on the sale of their property, but it will happen in conjunction with it. But we don't know how long that will take. But when it happens, those funds go to Fairview initially, and then on to the regional council, who actually own the total property. And at that stage, when we have an amalgamation approved, 15% of those funds stay with the regional council, and 85% of those funds come to the new church. That will happen when the sale of the property goes through and when regional council approves the amalgamation. Second part of that, sorry, could you go back there? Second part was, does Fairview need to have a strategic plan for how to use 85% of the funds they keep? Well, I think I've just answered that question. Those 85% of the funds will come to the new church, and we will, as a new entity, we will all decide how to spend those funds. Now, obviously, they'll be invested, but it will give us an opportunity as a new church to invest in programs and services and initiatives that we would like to have here in the new church. Some of them will be physical. We may do some things in the sanctuary here to improve communication and to make sure they feel welcome. But I just say at this stage, it's not a question of whose funds they are. I mean, they will be, the new church will get the benefit of any funds that come from that sale. Should a consultant be hired to oversee the process on behalf of the two bodies? It wasn't felt necessary at this stage to have a consultant. We've got two very qualified amalgamation teams, and I think certainly the initial work can be done by those teams. If we need help going forward, for example, if we have when we get to the new name of the church, we might need a facilitator to help us decide what's the best way to do that and how to approach it. So we're open to that, but at this stage it wasn't felt necessary to hire a consultant. Next slide. How is the new name for the church decided? Well, as I said earlier, that will be decided by you and by all of us together. We haven't figured out the process yet, and we may need some facilitation for that. But it will definitely be an opportunity for all of us to have input to that. We've already had some very good suggestions as to names, and we'll probably come down to a final tally of maybe 3 or 5 names, and we'll vote on it. And we'll vote together in the new church with Fairview. What happens to any debts? We're very fortunate we don't have any debts. Wish we could all say that. This last year, I think, was the first time we've had a deficit. And that's been covered by the amount we've built up in our operating fund over the years. So there is no debt in this church, and we're fairly strong financially. And again, after this, we can answer any specific questions anybody has about that. Is there another slide? Will there be loss of staff here at Rockingham? Amalgamating, do all staff resign and apply? The answer to that is that's open for discussion going forward. But we're fortunate in that, well, first of all, our M&P committee has talked to all of our staff and made them aware of what's happening and tried to make them comfortable in the process. In some cases, we have had some resignations, and so it won't be too difficult to fill in those positions. But in any case, as I say, the M&P committee are talking to our staff and making sure everybody is comfortable. At some point, we will have to decide, between one individual or another. But at this stage, the only positions that are sorted out are the office administrator, in that the Fairview administrator has resigned, and so we will obviously go with our administrator, Sylvia. I should have said the first, of course, important person is Reverend Angela here, and we're very fortunate to have her answer our call, and so Angela will be our minister going forward with the new church. Any other positions, as I say, will be discussed with the staff involved, and we'll be very sensitive to their wishes and their needs, and hopefully we'll have a successful outcome, which we'll keep you advised as that continues. Second part of that question was, if and when we amalgamate, does the process for finding a new minister have to be repeated, or will Reverend Angela be the minister? And maybe, David, you want to just talk to that point?
Thanks, David. I'm going to take this opportunity to say a few more things. And I appreciate David's representation for what the conversation between the two committees has been like so far, and offering some clarity and confidence with respect to that. I'm going to introduce a little ambiguity and just remind you all of what David has said. They're developing the plan. There are 5 major points to the plan. The plan will come to the congregations for your consideration and your approval, and you will vote. And upon the completion of a positive vote by both congregations, then those materials will go to the regional council for regional approval, and the approval to implement on a proposed date, which the committee will develop. So your job as congregations will be to hold the feet of the committee to the fire, to continue to ask your questions and to receive updates. And when the proposed kind of assembled wisdom of their work becomes available for your consideration, to read it very carefully and to ensure that it does say what you expected it to say, what you hope it will say, and what your ambitions and dreams are for the amalgamation going forward. I say that as an encouragement and a warning, because I have seen amalgamations go well, and I've seen them go very, very poorly. And the turning point on that concern is a clarity of understanding going into the amalgamation, what we're intending to do, and an understanding of the commitment to follow that plan following the amalgamation moment, and to carry that forward so that there's no surprises, that everybody kind of understands where we're going and where we're headed with this. So keep that in mind, and be diligent in your work as regular folks within the congregation. Your work is to pay attention, to read carefully, to ask questions, and to ensure that what you're approving is indeed what you expected to be provided to you, and to show the way forward on things. And I would say in this particular case, as David has presented, there's some pretty clear understanding from the Fairview folk of where this is headed. The building's in some tough shape. To stay in place would require some significant financial expenditures, which you can't do until you've got the finances. So back up to some significant financial fundraising and calling together of resources to do that. The Fairview people have acknowledged and kind of accepted they don't have the wherewithal to carry that kind of project forward. Even so, the property has value. It's got location, 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 and there's value to be had there. And so the beauty of this moment is that for Fairview, they bring value into the amalgamation. They know that that property can be turned into money that can help sustain ministry. And they'll be looking for how the plan includes Fairview. And as a Clayton Park resident, I would say Clayton Park, in the vision for the ministry that will be based here. Credit to Sharon Ballantyne for starting to call it the Flamingo location. So the ministry may be based at the Flamingo location, but will reach as far as Fairview, we hope. And so that'll be part of the conversation again. How will that be embodied and enlivened? How will it be endowed financially? What will be the resources that will point towards this expanded geographic zone for the ministry that's based here on Flamingo? So bear those things in mind as you, I think there's a slide coming about how do we, show welcome and include and engage and embrace the Fairview people as we move into this new thing. That will be part of that work to do, to bear in mind and keep in view as we move forward on this. What was the question? Put the screen back up for a second. Ministers. Times have changed, and we've moved into a new structure and a new region. The manual's been revised and updated, and so have the handbooks. And so things that we knew were true previously are a little different now going forward. One of those things is that it is not a policy that a minister must resign when an amalgamation takes place. It's a best practice. It was a strong recommendation, and it was something that was imposed and promoted pretty strongly in previous amalgamations. But within our current structure and policy, it's not an absolute requirement. And circumstances, come into play about what's sensible in this particular case. And given that you've just been through a change in pastoral relations and issued a new call and welcomed Angela to be your full-time minister beginning in January, as well as your part-time minister now for the next couple of months, nobody's going to be surprised by that. Fairview saw it coming, talked with Angela as that was being considered, and saw that as a positive consideration within the amalgamation conversation. And Rockingham, having made the decision to call Angela, clearly you're committed as well. For the plan, when it gets prepared and presented, and the 5 points talk about staffing, the plan says, we would propose that Reverend Angela remain in ministry with the newly amalgamated congregation. Nobody will be surprised by that. We would expect both of congregations to vote in favor of that, and I can't see the region interfering with that. If we want to lean on a policy statement, there's a line in the search handbook that says incumbent ministers can be offered succeeding positions. So Angela is the minister in Rockingham at the moment. Rockingham comes into an amalgamation and becomes part of a new congregation, bringing its history and legacy with it. The incumbent minister can be offered the position, and the region can support that. So I wouldn't be worried about that unless somebody better comes along, in which case, we'll think again. But in the meantime, I think you're on track, and your plan is unfolding, and that seems to be where things are heading, and that'll be fine. Yeah.
Thank you, David.
He won't be asking me back. So I had to get everything in while I could.
Not true, not true. I think we've got a few more slides. Will there be a loss of tenants to accommodate our growing family and hopefully growing programs? The answer to that question is still to be decided. We have a number of tenants right now. Fairview have a number of tenants. We will try to coordinate it in the new church so that whatever tenants we do have will fit our vision and our view of the future. But that we can accommodate at this stage. There are certain leases we have to fulfill and so on. But with the new church, we will have a plan for how best to use the area downstairs, and indeed the whole church. So I hope that answers your question. So there shouldn't be a loss of tenants, but we may, in due course, we may lose some tenants. But it will be a positive situation again, because again, with the new funds coming from the sale of Fairview, we're in a position to, I don't say pick and choose, if you like to use that word, but we certainly want to make sure we have the right tenants in place. So we'll do that. Will we need to form a new council? How do we ensure we have members from both churches on it to make it fair? Will councils and committees be dissolved or merged? Well, the answer to that is there will be a new council. As to the process, it will be determined through the timing. We would like to see it happen, if we can, before next year. So that means that by May or June of this year, we should really try to have this amalgamation fleshed out in great detail, including what's the composition of the new council. We'll need a new nominating committee, which will be comprised of people from both congregations. And we'll come up with a fair process for electing a new council. Next question. Do all council members resign and reapply for the new community of faith? Well, in effect, every year council turns over and are re-elected. So yes, there'll be a new council and it will be elected by the congregation. But it's not a question of firing anybody or dropping anybody. There'll be discussion with the individuals from the nominating group and from M&P, and it will be a fair process, making sure that both congregations are well represented, both in the councils and in the committees going forward. How soon could people from both churches serve on committees inquires help lead worship? Well, again, as soon as we amalgamate, we'll be joining together. And in the meantime, with Fairview coming to worship with us, we'll try to include them wherever possible in our church life. And I have a few thoughts on that later, which I'll address as far as ways to make Fairview feel welcome. Next clip. Will there be changes or upgrades done to our sanctuary to make Fairview congregation feel more at home, like a new church? Bringing over their stained glass windows, grand piano, upgrading flooring, etc., etc. Yes. Well, there will be some changes in the church. We don't know it yet. We'll have to figure out what are the best ways to make everybody feel comfortable. But there's no question we can improve this area here and downstairs to everybody's satisfaction. And in terms of making Fairview feel welcome, yes, there probably will be a place for their stained glass window. They're very proud of that, and rightfully so. And there probably is areas we can incorporate that in our thinking. And also the same with the grand piano and so on. There may be areas we can work in. We may need to change the pew system. We may need to change the view up here, but anything is possible. And as long as we work in a spirit of cooperation and willingness to make it work, I think it can happen. Next slide. How may we reach out to members of Fairview who will be very sad to be moving from their church building, as well as sharing their minister? And then there's a number of ways. I'll maybe read out some of the comments we've had from you in the questionnaire as to how we can do that. And I'll just throw these out for your consideration. I guess one of the things we can do is worship together. And I'm going to ask Anne to come up and maybe make a little announcement about some future initiatives with Fairview. And of course, as I said, I've already told you that they will be worshiping here beginning on January the 7th, the first Sunday in January. But Anne, if you want to just add to that.
Thank you so much. So as we look towards amalgamation with our friends and neighbors, as chair of worship, I'm really excited, and I'm happy to share some information that is afoot about sharing joint worship in the coming season of Advent. So on December the 17th, we have been invited by the Congregation of Fairview United to join them for worship at 10:30. So that would mean a little road trip for us. And we will come together, led by our both ministers, the minister we share, Reverend Angela, and we can also participate by reading scripture or singing, and also we'll have a chance to have some fellowship with our friends, neighbors, and new church, future church family. So it seems like a wonderful way to celebrate the third Sunday in Advent, the Sunday of joy. So that was actually a huge, it answered a question and a problem for me, because as chair of worship, we had an empty spot and in terms of pulpit supply. So it's just so gracious and generous of Fairview United to invite us to worship with them. And on December the 24th, following our 10:30 communion service, we are once again to worship with Fairview United at 4 p.m. So again, because we're in this transition phase, it was difficult to get a second minister to lead sort of a later Christmas Eve service. So again, our friends from Fairview United are extending hospitality and an opportunity to worship with them. And this is not really new to us, only a continuation of practice of alternating, sharing summer worship, as well as some services during Holy Week, Monday, Thursday, Good Friday. So this is just wonderful. And as we contemplate this new thing, I can't help but conclude that this is truly a spirit-led process. And given that on January 7th, as we celebrate Epiphany with our new minister, our very first service, we'll be joined by our friends and family, new family, and together worshiping that first Sunday. And so with the help of Reverend David Hewitt, our regional minister, and the amalgamations teams and God's guidance, we will work together to be a truly united church family. So may it be so. So I think also we have a covenanting service to look forward to in the new year, early in the new year. So I think it does. It gives us a chance to go to our friends and also to understand that leaving a familiar spot, a spiritual home, will have some sadness. And so yeah, I think that would be a wonderful thing if we can go there. And we hope that we can make that happen through carpooling and various things. So we'll have that in the announcements next week. So we're just very, very excited for this phase. But also, it's a bittersweet time because we get to stay here and folks are coming to us, but we do have a chance to go to our friends, and we should do that if we can. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So as Anne says, if we can attend Fairview on December 17th and 24th, in the spirit of getting to know them and working together in the future, it's a great way to get together. Recognize that there will be grief in losing their church and changing to a new location. Again, that's just a question of being kind and warm and welcoming. Greet Fairview warmly to Rockingham in the new year when they come here. Let them know we're excited about the new church and its possibilities. We can invite some of Fairview members to usher at Rockingham after their church closes pre-formal amalgamation. And indeed, you can read some scriptures. There are lots of ways we can include them in the service. look for ways to honor their history. We mentioned that before. We can bring some of their plaques, their stained glass windows, their grand piano, so we can certainly be aware of their rich history. And particularly, Fairview is very strong in outreach, so there's a lot we can learn from them in that respect, and we can certainly be interested to know how that works. We can hold potluck lunches or suppers with name tags and greet one another. To avoid the feeling of them being swallowed up, stress the words new church instead of amalgamation. It's going to be a totally new church, and we're going to work together to make it a wonderful place. Ensure Fairview is well represented in the new council and new committees, especially nominating, worship, finance, and outreach. As I say, they're bringing a lot of experience and some wonderful people, so we're looking forward to having them join us and be part of the new church. We may consider a joint workshop with a facilitator where we can work with Fairview in roundtable groups to investigate how we move forward. And of course, a part of that is naming the new church also. So those are some suggestions as to how we can do it, and I'm sure you've got a lot of others, and we certainly look forward to hearing from you on that. Next slide. We must be getting close to the end here. Okay, we're ready for the motion. Okay, before we go with the motion, maybe I can ask for any questions or any things we haven't maybe covered or clarify. Yes, Diane? We're getting a mic. And there's no question we can't have a stab at, so by all means, any question.
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. I know, like, once we join our congregations together in the new year, which is going to be fantastic, I believe. If, like, the process of amalgamation or new church can take some time at times, and, you know, June will be great, but, you know, that's a lofty date. But I was wondering, even if we're not amalgamated by June, would it be possible for the members of Fairview to be, like, on committees, or is that still going to be separate?
Well,
I mean, I don't know what the rule.
No, you got to think though. Their building is still going to be there.
Right.
Their committees probably will still stay in place. Maybe not as working, not as busy as ours would be, but it might be difficult to do that. And I think, you know, we have to consider we're going to have a whole new slate of committees. I think we can wait on that, to be honest with you. As far as committee work goes, we should continue as is. If there are any opportunities, certainly to discuss future initiatives, we can make sure through the amalgamation teams that we're talking the same voice, and if there are opportunities to work together, we'll take them wherever we can. Probably not with formal committee work right now. Helen had a question? Just a minute, Helen, we'll get the mic to you.
I think I might have been away when the question of new names came out for the church. So what were some of the suggestions for a new name?
You want to know what are the suggestions for a new name?
Yeah,
well, there are too many to mention. At this stage, they were just collecting names.
Oh, you were just collecting them?
Yeah, I mean, we can't make any decision here about a name because it's going to be a joint decision with Fairview.
Okay.
So if you have any suggestions, though, by all means, we've got a number come through on the questionnaires, and if you want to forward anything to the amalgamation team, we'll be happy to, but it's too early to bring it forward at this stage. I mean, one of the points was made, though, that it would be nice to have, if it's going to be a joint name, nice to have Fairview or some derivation of Fairview in the front part of it. So Fairview, Rockingham, or Fair, whatever. Yes. So that's something we're looking at as well. But again, there'll be a lot of time to discuss that in a wider setting and with input from Fairview as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Any other questions? Okay, I think we're ready to go with the motion.
This is just a clarification of something that Anne said, and I don't know if it was just me that heard it wrong or not or whatever, but there is a Christmas Eve day service here at Rockingham, right?
Yes.
Sunday morning at 11, or I mean 10:30.
That's
Yes.
correct.
So we would have our own Christmas service here in the morning, and then are invited to go at 4:30 for a communion service at Fairview. Is that what I heard?
I think it's
4 o'clock.
4
Okay.
o'clock.
Here? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if others were confused about that, but I was.
So that's, to clarify, we're having the, on Christmas Eve in the morning, we'll have a service at 10:30, our normal service. In the afternoon, we're invited to go to Fairview to have service with them. And ahead of that, we're going to have on the 17th. No, we're not having a service here on the 17th. It's going to be at Fairview. That clarify it? Thank you, John, for clarifying that. Is there anybody else there? No. Okay, we're ready for the motion. Do you want me to make the motion? I would move that Rockingham United Church proceed with the intention of amalgamation with Fairview United Church. Very simple motion, and same motion that Fairview had. So is there a seconder for that? Ron Tanton? So I leave you.
Ron?
Who's the seconder, sorry?
Ron Tanton.
Ron Tenton. Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? I'm going to ask this 3 times, just so give you time to percolate for just a moment. Are there any other questions? We have a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. Moved by Dave and seconded by Ron. Now the question. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Beth is doing a super count here. Your arms are getting tired, I know. Is this your daily workout? Okay.
71. Oh, 72.
72. Are there any opposed? Please raise your hand. Any abstainers? Okay. Thank you very much. The motion is carried for amalgamation with Fairview United Church. So I don't believe there's any other motions to be had other than a motion to adjourn. And thank you very much.
Before adjourning, I just want to thank David Hewitt and Reverend
Yes.
Ballantyne for attending. Very, very much appreciated. And thank you all.
I will say I didn't do a very good job of introducing Reverend Ballantyne. She's with us in a new position within the United Church Canada called a growth animator, which is a very exciting position. So she is the growth animator for the Maritime region. And it's a very exciting job for the Atlantic region. Thank you, David. It's a very exciting job. She comes with us with such great vision for things that we can do and be creative. And I am so excited to have her with us. So we have moved adjournment, and thank you very much.
Who's moving? Who's moving?
David?
David is moving?
And seconded by Ron.
No, for adjournment.
Oh, you only need one for adjournment? You
Oh,
just need
okay.
one motion?
Okay,
Okay.
so I'll put you for a move for adjournment?
David moved for adjournment.
Oh, David Martin.
Martin.
Thank you.
His last name was escaping me.
And I got this motion. in.
Okay. I always feel bad, like I'm sitting here doing nothing and you're like, Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Yes, please. Actually, it's probably all on that. Yes, I would. If you could just email it to me, that would be great, okay? Then I'll include that.
I'm Doreen Martin, I'm Chair of MNP. What I wanted to ask was, I'll need to get up. Anyway, I have a file of a minister who hasn't been with us for 12 years. And I,
7 is your line.
so yes, because they can have a conflict of interest.
a few things.
I really don't want to be passed on.
Yeah, I had great notes from the chair of Rockingham.
For 7 years, but after 7 years.
She,
Okay, I didn't want to
Fairview
do that.
Council.
Right.
And she sent me all of her notes, like her rough notes. Yeah, so I wanted to